Så det behöver bli ganska rent så här. Okay, and I can also tell you about the first rule for these 2 days. En av de första reglerna för att vi ska få liksom i givna ögonblick så behöver vi skapa liksom uppmärksamhet för den som pratar. Och då gör man helt enkelt så här. När man vill ha tyst. Och när alla sträcker upp handen då tystnar det i rummet. Så det är ett enkelt sätt att skapa uppmärksamhet. To make silence when you need to say something in front of everybody. Is it okay? Yeah? Okay. So now we move over to next step. And we start a real check-in. So I have a simple question. Why have you chose to come? You know, it's Saturday. There is a lot of things happening around in city, and maybe you have a family, maybe you need to do some homework, I don't know what. But why have you chosen to come here to the Initiative Forum? Why? Please talk to each other for 5 minutes, more or less.
See if you can talk to as many people as possible. So really move through the space, speak to someone, and then move on to the next person.
Yeah. Thank you. Så flytta till nästa person. Hittar du en ny person? Thank you, everybody. Wonderful. Yeah. We were thinking, before we give you the next question, maybe you should just look around in the room. Are there people you haven't really seen before? Anyone? Yeah, everybody, please. So, we just wanted to say to you that please take the opportunity to get to know some new people. So, we will have the next question, and it's all about when you are leaving on Sunday, tomorrow afternoon. What are your hopes? What do you think have happened? What are you bringing home? What do you think we have accomplished during these days? What are your hopes? Please, choose 5 minutes. To talk together, talk with. thank you very much, everybody. It's really helpful with just doing this. It's so simple. Now we move over to the last question. And take a look again around in the room and maybe find someone new to talk with. And the third and last question is, what are your concerns? What are your worries? What are your concerns about these days? Do you have any? Do you want to share them? Please.
Okay, thank you very much. This might be a bit of a challenge, but I would like us to stand in a circle. I think it will be a circle with some stuff in the middle. But let's see how we can form a circle, and as much as possible where we can all see each other, so you can move in a little bit here. Lotte, would you like to be in the middle of the circle? So just to briefly introduce myself, my name is Chris, I'm from the Netherlands. I'm very happy to be here with you today. Some of us we've already met yesterday. I do a lot of work around diversity and how to make sure in groups that all different voices get heard, and how do we actually connect through our differences. So not in spite of our differences, but how do we use our differences as a force, and how do we sort of use that potential. So that's very briefly. And what I would like to do is, there's all these conversations have taken place, and obviously there was a lot of energy coming from those conversations, and we kind of want to bring those into the larger group. So I'm going to put this away. It's going to be a challenge. So we're all going to have to use our voices so that we can all hear each other. And what we're going to do is, whoever wants to share something about the first question, about why are you here, what you do is you step forward, and you tell us, why are you here? And then anyone who recognizes that steps forward as well. But maybe I start talking, you think, hey, that's true for me as well. You step forward, and I go on and you think, that's a bit different. You step back. So this might be sort of your morning gymnastics, where you're stepping in and out according to what's being said. Yeah, so to practice a little bit, I'm very excited. I'm very excited to be here. I'm very curious about what this day is going to bring. I'm feeling a little tired. So I will start. So I will continue a little bit. Yeah, for me it is very hope-giving to be here. I felt really concerned about where it's going with politics, and even to a place where, when we had our elections, I didn't even want to watch anymore the debates that were going on, because I feel that these debates are, you don't have to keep stepping forward. Once you're stepping in, it means that I'm resonating and you step back. And then you no, so I feel that a lot of the debates, they're not helping us find a common solution that works for all of us. They're actually dividing us more than anything else. So I'm really hopeful that this can be a space where we can find a new way of having those conversations. So whoever would like to say something, just step in. Just be aware that you say what you want to say, and at the same time that we share the space. So.
I was kind of worried, or my kids, 20 and 16 years old, was very worried. And yesterday, and I said that we're going to be guided by the team behind Barack Obama, who won this election. Do you think we're going to do it? And he's really, you know, what Mother said is nothing necessary. And he said, yes, you will. So that's why I'm here. So we can get this planet better for well-being.
I hope when we finish tomorrow that I will be more strong in my being and doing.
I'm going to ask us to divide the question. So the first question is why we are here. Yeah, so then we can separate it a little bit.
I'm curious. That's all.
Yeah, we'll come back later to that.
I'm not to say my name, Eric. I'm here because I work with, let's call it, big finance for many years, and I concluded that capitalism is driving us down the drain. I'm here to understand what's doable when we want, I've coined it, capitalism for our common home. So I hope to have some help in that issue.
Yes.
I'm here because I don't like these top-down hierarchies where people feel that they have the right to be angry at you and that to take power myself over what I can do. Yes, because I see that I can do so much if I just try. Yeah.
Something else that hasn't yet been said around why you are here.
I'm here because I feel like we talk about work which I'm getting paid for. I feel like we need to change that perspective to more see it like change, to see like I'm here, but I'm here participating, but I'm also learning about things.
I'm curious about, I hope I will have some sign after these 2 days around what are we going to use all these wonderful co-creation for.
So, anything before we move on to the other questions? Anything that hasn't been said around what is your reason to be here this weekend?
I just love the initiative and the way it's set up. That when we hear somebody that thinks different from us, that we meet that with curiosity and learning. And I think listening is the key to reshape the society. I've seen that in so many organizations, mostly as an entrepreneur, that when you really listen and have 110% respect for each other, you can do the impossible. And so a lot of hope of basically they have a lot of hope also for this weekend, that everybody stands up for their integrity and speaks up for exactly what each person thinks and believes in, because we need that, not to just agree with everything. So looking forward to meet you guys.
Anything else that hasn't been said about why we are here?
What excited me the most about the initiative is...
Speak up.
What excites me the most about the initiative is both the heart, but also the evidence-based aspect of it. That it's not a politics based on left or right opinions, it's forward-thinking, evidence-based. How can we collectively use our knowledge to improve this world?
Okay, so if I can summarize a bit, there seems to be a push and a pull why we're here. And the push is a lot around concern. Concern around our democracy, the top-down structures that we have, capitalism, concern for our children, concern for how divided we have become. And then the pull why we are here, why we want to be here, it has to do with trying to find our own leadership, our bottom-up leadership, and stepping into that place. There's something around redefining the give and take in our society. Yeah, so is it I'm just paying and that's it, or what do I have to offer in this process? And there's something around excitement from can we create a space where all voices are heard? And where each of our voices and each of our differences is actually taken into account. Is there anything missing in here, or something you would like to add?
Well, I'm here because I believe in the power of participatory culture. And I don't think it's something new, I think it's something very old for the return. It's like it's a return to pre-civilized organizational structures. Maybe that's a situation. I feel it's something very old, that's why it's so strong.
Absolutely, thank you very much, because that's actually the part that I was leaving out a bit, that this is not just some kind of whim we're acting on. You know, there's a lot of proof of concept already, in all different kinds of cultures, and even in our own cultures, the idea of how can we create a space together. Yeah. Yeah. Anything to add on this point, on why we are here? Something that hasn't been said, which you think is important to add? And I would like to move us forward to the question of, and some of us are already bordering on it, what needs to happen in these 2 days for you to be content? So who would, and I would like to start. I hope that people can go away from here with a clearer sense on what the next step is. So that each of us knows, okay, this is where I can step in, or this is where I can start taking on my role. Anyone on what you want to happen in these 2 days?
Well, as I think
I want to step out of here tomorrow with
Actually,
clear
I'm just
sense.
getting a good, from my external memory. Can you say your name before you speak, so then we can just sort of start learning each other's names?
Of course, Niklas.
Yeah.
Good to meet you all. And the second thing is that I want to walk out of here with the feeling what I want to do, and that I want to do it with you.
I hope I can leave these 2 days with more tools how to work politically.
Specific tools.
Your name?
Anne-Marie.
Lotte, I hope that people will take leadership and step in and do what we are good in and to get things done. And that we can be not only one in this, we can be more people in that, and we can share and collaborate instead of seeing each other as competitors. So if we're not perfect here now, and you feel like you're more perfect, just help that person to become better.
I hope everyone will understand what the initiative is all about, and we have a clear way of communicating that with others.
Good one.
Jonathan, I hope we can have good discussions where we dare to say what we think without being too judgmental about what our opinions are, in order to have a more creative or constructive discussion.
I will introduce myself in a moment. My name is Carindo, and I'm hoping that nobody feels a language barrier because everything is in English. So if there's any moment you just want to talk in Swedish, please, I hope that you will.
Okay, my name is Danusha, and being very skeptical to most of the things, I hope I won't be there tomorrow.
When I met the initiative, it was like coming home. And I hope that tomorrow we all in here share that same feeling. We're home.
Ida. See, I want to be politically, how do you say, independent. But it's something about the initiative that is so lättande, revealing, no? Relieving, yes. And it's like religion, no one can have their patent of love. Well-being persons, people on well-being planet, we should all be there working for this. So how can you not say no?
My name is Hampus. My hope for this weekend, or what I will leave with feeling, would be I would like to see an initiative that is, because I've been observing it from a distance from the beginning. I think it's time to, I mean, it's a necessary place, but I would like to see more activism and action and concrete, like bring it down to the micro, but very macro, very sort of process about process. So yeah, let's just hand out soup if that can help us make it grounded.
Anything else that hasn't been said?
Well, I'm Martin from the north of Sweden. I hope that I leave here tomorrow inspired to the maximum point to spread this message all over the country. And that we can arouse some interest from the media and others so that people will know this wonderful value-guided party and its areas of action. And that we all will do that with full speed and full power from tomorrow.
My name is also Martin, and I hope that I will leave here and feel empowered to take the role as a community leader and work with this, and that we all can have the feel empowered to take the roles of leaders, and also have the courage to be vulnerable and do that.
Anything else that hasn't been said? So to summarize, there seem to be different levels on which we want results. There's the individual level. Yeah, I want to know what can I do, what is my task, what am I good at, what role can I step into. But there's also this group level. We want to do it together. And we want to know what are we together, what is the initiative, and we want to be able to transmit that to other people, so that this can spread throughout the country. So we want to be sort of, on all these levels, we want to be enabled, and we want to know how, we want tools, practical tips, how to do it. But there's also a large part around motivation. And we want to know, we want to also feel it, and maybe have some space. I'm interpreting a bit, but is there also space here to voice my skepticism? So that I can sort of work with that as well, and really step into motivation in an authentic way. And there's a wish for this process to do it together, and to find ways of how can we really open this, make this a safe space for everything to be said, where language is not a barrier, but also our own personal judgments are not a barrier. So how can we really take on that challenge to practice what we preach right here? Anything to add to this, to our hopes for these days? Maybe I'm thinking one thing. Also, how do we translate to concrete action, to movement, to doing, to be ready to do? Anything missing here? Anything to add? Yeah.
Well, I hope to get to know as many as possible. There's a lot of new people here, and people that I would normally not meet in my day job. So I hope great new networks as well.
This is regarding the schedule we all wrote up.
Well, actually, if it's a practical announcement, can I ask you to leave it for later, then we can just finish this and get to the
because it's right now. People are supposed to do stuff. Yeah. So Gustav, Isabel, Irmeli, Paula, and Elisabeth, if you could fix with tea and coffee and stuff. Yeah, he's on it. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, so nothing for okay, so as some of us move forward to make sure that we stay hydrated throughout this process, I would like to have some time to look at the last question, which is, what concerns do you have? What do you think might go wrong, or what is your sort of worst case scenario maybe of these days? So if I'm to start, something that I think might go wrong is that we have so much learned to cede our power to other people, that sometimes when we're not happy with things, how things are going, that people will start looking at the facilitators going like, why are we doing this? And not stepping up themselves. So my concern would be that, that some of us may feel like they don't have a right to take leadership, or that they're waiting for someone else to solve things, rather than stepping up themselves. That would be my concern.
Are we going to go back and forth?
Good morning!
Is that a concern?
It's a legitimate
So I agree with you. And you won't.
I'm Leonard, and a concern I have when I speak to people about the initiative, they always ask me, well, is it left or is it right? And I said, it's forward. And that is a concern I have, that since we are filtered through maybe 20 years or 30 years or 50 years of programming, we will get into discussions and we feel, that's a bit too leftish for me, or that's a bit too rightish for me, and try to get those behind us, and as Michael said, really listen and see how can we move it forward.
My name is Camilla, and I would like to add to that. I think my main concern is that how do we manage to create a space that is collaborative with respect for each other's differences and different opinions, and still be able to transform that into a forward direction? Because we tend to, I know that maybe the Facebook group wasn't the best one to bring up. I recognize that I follow it for a while now, and it's very diverse in themes and subjects and topics that's coming up. And how do we transform that into a forward direction without losing that power? You understand what I mean? So, that's my main concern.
Jonathan, as has been said already to some extent, I'm worried that we develop ideas based on too much only heart and not our mind. So we need to be look at the evidence, use scientific methods, and so on.
Yes. I want to say, I'm not worried. It's the right time now.
Hello, Sinan. I'm worried that we won't have clear enough of a metric of where we want to go. Okay, we want to go forward, but which direction is forward towards? That we don't, if we want to have evidence in new science, what are the metrics that we measure our success by?
Anything else that hasn't been said? Yeah.
Maybe I say this once again. Now, it's already been said, but yeah, that we have a clear direction, that we know where we're going, and we have a good narrative of how to get there, and which we can share with other people after we've been here.
Jag tar upp en oro som kom upp tidigare, och det är därför jag pratar svenska. Att vi inte glömmer bort att vi kan faktiskt prata svenska väldigt mycket när det inte finns några engelskspråkiga. Nej.
So just give a brief translation of that.
Don't speak Swedish if you want.
If you want.
That we forget to speak Swedish.
I, the latecomer, and I apologize. Was it my name?
Yes.
Anna Bengtsson. Hi. Yeah, and what I would want is just for us to talk very openly about issues and ways forward, and finally we're doing it in our country. I want to listen.
So any concerns that you have for this weekend that haven't been voiced yet, that you would like to add? Yes.
I'm worried that the strong verbal people in this group are going to take a lot of space, and that people that are not that sure about speaking their voice, that they will stand in and I can't get it, I can't get it, and that we keep in mind that if you are a person that takes a lot of space and you're used to talk, that maybe you take one step back and breathe, and if you're not that person, you go into the space. And if we are in small groups, that we could be checking with each other, that we see that you haven't spoken for a long time. What is your voice in this?
Yes.
My name is Magnus. I'm a latecomer. Sorry for that. I'm very, very happy that we're moving ahead. But I think when we do that, we should also look back who's following us. So it's really, really important that we also show the path to where we're heading, and not only focus on the goal itself.
Okay, so if I can summarize a bit, and then we'll see if there's things to add. On the one hand, there's the concern of
are we going to have all the different points of view come in, right? Are we going to open it up enough without letting ourselves be limited by all these patterns that have been engraved, you know, of what is left and what is right and where is it going? So are we going to be able to hear all the voices, even if they maybe don't speak English so well or don't speak Swedish so well, or if they have a different point of view or if they're shyer? And at the same time there's the fear of, what if we open it up too much? Are we going to get anywhere? Are we clear enough on where we want to get? Are we going to be going back and forward too much, too large part of the time? Am I forgetting something? What part is missing in this, in the concerns?
Yeah, maybe listening. Yeah. I don't know if you're familiar with the new live process, so different kinds of listening. And having reflection and you won't change, you need to widen your kind of listening. Not talking like Alexias back and forth from your containers of information.
Thank you. I think this is actually a nice bridge to where I want to take us, because this is not easy, right? If it was easy, everybody would be doing it, right? And in a lot of countries, we're seeing that people are not actually managing to do it. So just before we move on, is there something to add in the concerns? Yeah.
I would add, like, don't forget your body and your context. So if you feel uncomfortable, like just like with the temperature, with the noise level, if you're thirsty or hungry, like deal with the basics first. Like don't sit there and like just take it, and then it's gonna negatively affect like everyone. So think about like put on your own seatbelt first, or with oxygen mask, and then you can have others. Then you can contribute. So don't forget about where you are bodily.
Take your own leadership, right? Take your responsibility. Anything else? Okay. Can I ask you in a moment? I apologize.
For sure, but I have a bit more serious concern. Not that serious, but a bit pessimistic. Someone here suggested, or
you speak up a little bit?
Told me about that he thought that the ideas here are actually really homogenized, and honestly I would agree with that, and that's kind of one fear I have coming in here, that most people here already agree on most issues, and the only disagreements that are going to come up are tiny minor things that aren't even worth fighting over.
So I would translate that concern as, are there enough voices in here? Are there enough different voices? And I think that's very legitimate. Okay. I'm going to ask you to take a seat, and preferably in a way that you can see this screen. So you can bring out the chairs or the mattresses or whatever. So have a So please find your seats. We will be having a break shortly, so if you are starting to feel like you need a break, hang in there just a little bit more.
How many minutes?
At around 11 we want to have a break. Yeah, if that's okay. So,
if there are difficult words in English, can we just raise
please, yeah,
I think that's a really good idea. Let's agree on that, right? If any language issues you don't understand, whether it's because of the language or anything else, please raise your hand. Because the thing is that if you are thinking, I'm not sure what this is about, very likely other people in the room are thinking the same thing. So you're actually doing us as a group a favor by flagging it. That same thing, if you feel like, I really need a break, we've been going on for so long, and you tell us, it's very likely that other people will be feeling the same thing. And so please feel free to speak up, Maria.
Can you say that about terms or anything else, words or facktermer, if someone doesn't know what they mean?
Of course, yeah.
Sometimes it's very intellectual level, so...
Yeah. This is actually a perfect bridge to what I want to just briefly show you. And it's just a way of looking at a group. We are here as a group, and when we leave on Sunday, there's other people that are stepping into this group, right? As this initiative spreads. And we can look at a group as an iceberg, and some of you may be familiar or not with this metaphor that was introduced by Freud at some point. Are people familiar with the metaphor of the iceberg? Okay, it's okay. So we can use the iceberg to look at each of us individually. You know, where we have a little point above the water, which is our consciousness. And then there's this whole bunch of stuff underneath the water that is impacting how I'm behaving, but I'm not necessarily aware of it. It may be that I'm a bit cranky for something that happened this morning, or I didn't sleep too well, or I'm starting to get hungry, and I'm not even aware of it, but it's affecting my interactions with people. But as you are here, each of us is an iceberg. But also, as we come here together, we become an iceberg altogether, like our whole group. And part of what's in our group is in our group consciousness. And the definition of group consciousness is those things that we all know, things that have been expressed in the group. So can someone give me an example? What is something that is in our group consciousness?
Our values.
Yes, the 6 values that Sana has shared. Yeah, what else is in our group consciousness?
That we want change. We want change.
We want change. Yeah.
Collaboration.
It has been named a little bit, but we can easily make assumptions. We can easily assume that this is what I'm feeling, so I'm assuming that other people think the same thing. But we can only know once we have named it and checked it with the group. Right? So what is in our group consciousness, I'm just going to hold them for a moment, is all those things, for example, that were said in the check-in right now. Yeah, or the fact that there's things that have been shared about the values or the program. And what is in our group unconsciousness?
We don't know how we want to change.
That we don't know what this path is going to look like is in our group unconsciousness. What else?
I guess some form of behavior towards each other and like maybe welcoming body language. Yes.
But here, group unconsciousness, it goes further. It's everything that hasn't been expressed in the group. Because some of us here know each other already, and some of us don't. Some of us have been part of this process for months. Some of us have only just stepped in. And we're not really clear about that. So if you look at the group unconscious, the part that is below the water, you can also call it the potential of our group. Just take a moment to think about it. If you look in this room, all the potential, it's all our collective knowledge, all our experiences, all our resources, our networks, the people we know, but also the people they know. And ask yourself, how much of that potential are we actually using? And think of any group where you work together. How much of the true potential of the group did you really use? And a large part of our challenge, and we were already talking about this a little bit yesterday, that it's quite an intimidating ambition that you have. It's no small thing to sort of change the paradigm in politics and to create a movement, etc. So really start looking at how can we tap into that potential? How can we tap into all the resources and knowledge and creativity and ideas that we have? And part of how we do that is to make sure that things that need to be said can be said. So this is going to be our challenge, and it's difficult because of this. I can talk about it for a long time, but Karim is limiting me, so I'm just going to summarize it in one picture. And what do you see in this picture?
One is upside down.
Pardon? What do you see?
One is upside down.
Yeah. So one bird is upside down. And what do you think the other birds are saying? What is wrong with you? What are you doing? Get up. Act normal. That's a very Dutch expression. Act normal. What are you doing? And it's interesting that this bird that's hanging upside down has a very different perspective from all the other birds. And wouldn't it be great if we could say, hey, that's interesting. You're hanging upside down. Let me see what that looks like. But what do you think will happen if another bird says, hey, let me see what that's like. What will the group say to that bird? You two? One is enough. Come on. Don't be so crazy. What's going on? And this is why it's sometimes so difficult to say what needs to be said. Because we're afraid of being that bird. And we've called him Fred, because in a workshop, when we were explaining this, someone said, I know that bird. That's Fred. Whenever we all want to go to the left, Fred wants to go to the right. That different bird. And that bird, it can be a pain in the ass. Especially if we have goals and results we want to get, and we want to go away from here with a clear plan of what we're going to do, then it's not very useful when we're trying to make a decision and we're almost there and one person goes like, I actually have a very different point of view. That's annoying. That often induces us to say, come on, let's move forward. But we need this bird. Like without this Fred bird, there's no progress, right? There's no change. So, just as you go into conversations today, I want to give you, you asked for practical tools. I just want to give you 2 sentences as practical tools. 2 sentences that you can use and that can actually make quite a big impact. Yeah, the first one is, who has a very different point of view? So notice that in a group, very easily we can go to a place of consensus. One person says, I think it's a good idea. The second person says it's a good idea. The third person, it becomes increasingly hard to say, I actually don't think it's a good idea, or I have concerns. So you have to be aware of this consensus forming and actively try to break it. So if you're all agreeing, it feels so great, doesn't it? Oh, we're all exactly on the same page, that's fun. Let your alarm bells go off. And make sure you ask this question, is there maybe someone with a very different point of view? And if we really want to make this a place where all voices are heard, we have to recognize that that takes courage to speak that minority voice. Because you risk being put down by the group or being annoying. Yes?
Just a question, like, how do you balance that with actually the moving forward part? Like,
yes, thank you for it. I will come to that.
Very shortly.
So let me finish this. So if someone does have the courage to speak out, let's all commit to not letting that person stand alone. So your follow-up question will be, who recognizes this? Or who thinks something similar? And maybe you notice as you step into the circle, it's a bit of a relief to see, hey, other people are feeling the same thing. And more often than not, this is the case. As I was saying, if you are not understanding what's being said and you speak up, more often than not, other people will start nodding as well. Yeah, I wasn't understanding either, but I didn't want to say anything. And so use these 2 questions. And I feel I have to round off, but I want to address what you said. You are touching on the myth of democracy. So what is the myth of democracy? Is that I'm passionate about something, it's something I want, I have my opinion, and the myth of democracy is that just because the majority wants something different, that I will say, oh, in that case, I'll just put aside whatever I'm passionate about, and I will follow the majority. It's a myth that just because we tell people what they have to do, that they actually do it. If we scare them enough, they might shut up in the moment, but then they start finding all kind of creative ways to show that they disagree. So how do we balance it with moving forward? I think actually pushing down the minority voice is a very short-term solution. It may seem fast in the moment, but it actually causes a lot of trouble and time-consuming issues later on. So I know this is brief and it's a lot to take in.
Where do you draw the line? I mean, to avoid flat Earth kind of discussions.
So I think this is where we come to the place of shared leadership, right? That everybody has expressed this wish of we want to have different voices heard, and there's also a very clear wish of we want to have results. So we have to self-manage. You know, I have to feel like, okay, am I saying this because it really needs to be said? And am I sharing my space enough with other people? Because this way of working, it doesn't mean that everybody has to say something about everything, or that every opinion needs to be voiced in as many words. It just means that what needs to be said is said. So this is sort of a self-regulating tool that we need to use, where we're all the time feeling what needs to be said in this moment, and say it. It's raising a lot of questions. Can we take a few questions? No. So please, we will be coming back to this, and we're sitting in the questions,
and we can vote.
Can I share something? Like, I was grown up in a neighborhood who had the most miljöpartister. It was in the 70s. So that's about when Miljöpartiet was started. And my parent generation was us, sitting, discussing in homes, or we had big tables. With kids, of course, wasn't that involved. But it's on an emotional level. I feel I'm back, but as a parent and as an adult. And now it's initiative. Because back then we didn't know what Miljöpartiet would go, right? Now they have, I don't know, 8%. So it's possible. I just want to share it. It's just I just sitting here, just wow. What a time travel.
I think that the rule of the political dance are fantastic to reach what you think. We will come to that later. So,
yeah, absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely.
I'm impressed by what we have done so far in a short time, and let's go on with that. I think it's a good way to get all voices heard.
Okay, so I'm just going to push us for time's sake to really limit us if you have questions. Yeah? So there will be time for sharing later on. Just a question you need to ask in order for you to be able to move forward. Eric?
Yeah, my question is, we have a decision-making process in the party. Should that process be used this weekend? Because that's a way of collective decision-making. And I think it should be openly stated that we have one, and if we're going to use it this week.
Yeah, so how about we have, actually the next step, what I want to invite is, I want to invite Michael up, who has been part of this movement from the start. So he can fill in a little bit these blanks on, okay, what is there already, and then maybe that will lead us to that question as well. Yes, so Michael.
Thank you, and it's so great. It's really a dream come true to see you here and to have this in-forum. It's really at the core of what we wanted to start with in Initiativet. We started with a dream of creating a listening political culture. And I will share Initiativet story, but I think Initiativet story is also hundreds and thousands of stories, depending on who tells it. So it will also be my personal story. What is my inspiration in this? And for me, I would say it's both frustration and inspiration. And the frustration started somewhere when the Swedish Democrats got elected into parliament in 2010. And back then I thought Sweden was immune to xenophobia. It was in other parts of Europe, but not in Sweden. And I thought, but who in the right mind would vote for such a party? And that was 2010. And then 4 years later, just before the election, I saw a documentary. It was a documentary called Politicians Without Goals, Politiker utan mål. And then they interviewed Fredrik Reinfeldt, the Prime Minister, and Stefan Löfven, the now Prime Minister. And they asked them, what do you see in Sweden in 20 years? And imagine, 20 years, so much have happened. Technical development, we will work in different ways, we will interact in different ways, we'll probably be more compassionate, more tolerant, because that's the trend. Totally different society. They say that half of all jobs will disappear, so we'll probably work in different ways. And what did they say? Fredrik Reinfeldt goes first, and he says, I see that we have to work longer. And then Stefan Löfven says, yeah, I see that we have to lower, get the unemployment down. And I was sitting there thinking, you know, what is this? You know, either they don't know where they're going, or they don't want to go anywhere, or, which is maybe even worse, they have a plan on where they're going, but they don't want to share it. They're lying about it. And there somewhere, I started thinking, maybe actually the Sweden Democrats are better, because they're actually talking about the big issues that we want to tackle. And then they come with solutions that are out the window, of course, that we should go back to the 60s or 50s and live the way we were, and have very simplistic solutions to complex problems. But at least they're talking about the big problems. And then inspiration started to come, because I felt a bit politically frustrated. I had been very interested in politics. I worked in politics in different ways. But when it came to party politics in Sweden, I felt, it's too boring. I can't be bothered. I want to, but I can't be bothered. And then I heard about the alternative in Denmark, our sister party, which did everything that I was missing in politics. They also came from my idea of having a listening political culture. They wanted to do politics in a new way. They developed their politics in collaboration with everyone. They invited everybody to discussions and workshops where they developed and talked about the challenges and the solutions and the dreams. And last but not least, like any inspiring company, they were governed by values, not by an ideology from the 1800s, which was probably great for the solutions in the 1900s, but it's not really helpful now. And that gave them flexibility and dynamic to come up with new, fresh solutions. And I had also then been working in a self-organizing organization where everybody could take any decision if they had the right information, and they, or everybody should have the right information, but if they consulted the people that were concerned and the people that had expertise. Imagine anybody can take any decision, and you can raise your wage, you know, you could do lots of stuff. And it worked brilliantly because everybody felt that this is my responsibility now. And what I saw in Initiativet was that they've done this for a country. That is their ambition. That's pretty cool. What an innovative, creative party that becomes. What an innovative, creative country that becomes. And of course, the last part that was so inspiring was that it was not just a paper product. They had actually got elected into parliament, and then they got 11% in Copenhagen. So it was possible. So that was a lot of inspiration, and then came the last bit of frustration that pushed us over the fence, and that was that Trump was elected. And then we said, now we can't stand aside anymore. Now any decent human being has to stand up and take a stance and fight for open, for a compassionate and democratic society. So that's what we did, and it's been a co-creative process ever since. First, we developed our values, and Sanna has mentioned them already. I'll just go through them quickly. It's openness, compassion, courage, optimism, co-creation, and a spirit of action. Handlingskraft, it's hard to translate. The spirit of action maybe is the best translation. And then we came to the vision. So we started co-creating. We said, okay, how do we want to do it? We have to do it with these values. But what do we want to achieve? And quite soon, the vision started formulating. Prosperous people on a prosperous planet. Välmående människor på en välmående planet. You said earlier, Bia, I think it says it all. I think everybody should agree to it. I think a lot of people do agree to it, but not a lot of parties are working for it. We have an economic system that we are working for, rather than an economic system working for people and for the planet. And I can go on area after area. Maybe I will do it shortly. Then we talked about, okay, what challenges do we want to solve? And the first one was really democracy. How can we have a democracy where more people feel engaged, where more people feel I can influence? Now it's about 20% that feel I can influence politics. How can we have that, and what society would look like if that would be 100%? If everybody could feel ownership for politics. The second one is well-being, and of course, if everybody believed in politics, which is now a bit scary. 40% of youngsters under 29, which are not any longer, say that maybe it's not so bad idea with a strong leader. So how can we reinstore faith in democracy? Just imagine, I'll be brief, I realize I'm taking a lot of time now, but just imagine what democracy would look like if internet had been invented before democracy. We do democracy in the same way that we did 100 years ago. We vote every third or fourth year. Second challenge, well-being. How can we have a society where everybody is healthy and happy, or at least that is the ambition, where we have a healthcare system that keeps us healthy. In old China, they used to have a system where you paid your doctor as long as you were healthy, and when you were sick, you stopped paying. Then the doctor keeps you healthy. In Sweden, we pay for the diagnosis. Then the doctor is good at giving diagnosis. And lastly, sustainability. How can we live on one planet and not 4 planets? So big challenges. So we really need all creativity and participation to come up with good solutions to this. And of course, we also organized in a participatory way, so a co-creative way, which means that anybody could take any initiative in the initiative, which makes it messy, frustrating at times, but very dynamic and very innovative. And I think it's also very much a learning process for us, but I see it works. And I'm very excited to see what this weekend also will spark us to do. If we all will feel ownership after this weekend and really say, okay, now I will take initiative to do something. Are there any questions? Yeah.
Why is it prosperous people and not prosperous beings?
To be honest, I made that up when I was giving a speech in English. I'm sure there is good room for copywriting on that one. If you mean beings as in not just human beings, but other beings, I think we said that's included in the planet. Yeah. Any other questions? Or what was the thing I should say? Are there something that has not been said? Yeah, question?
Hi, my name is Marco, and I have a tiny question. Is the initiative planning to take part in the parliamentary elections?
Very good question. So, what we've done since the launch in November is that we have had between 10 and 15 political labs already, and you will get a brief about what we have done in those political labs. So the party program is slowly coming together. I think a lot of input will also come from this weekend, and it will also be a living product, so that will be ever-changing when new thoughts comes up from the workshops. The idea is definitely to participate in the elections. We have ordered the ballots. We have 20 candidates. So definitely, yeah, for sure.
What is the Danish party called?
The Alternative. Alternativet.
Alternative, yeah. There is a Danish website called Initiativet as well.
Yeah, I don't know what that is about. Yeah. Ja! Swishande?
Repeat the question.
Will be.
Yeah.
Repeat the question.
Absolutely, yes. So, since you're so, I will. Since you're so eager to hear what is being said, I will say this loud and clearly. If you want to support this vision of a co-created politics, and this, or this ambition of a co-created politics, and this vision of prosperous people on a prosperous planet, please, and also support this event and flights for Toby and the things that we have organized here. Please swish to this number. There are posters on the walls here. There is one I see, and there's one there as well, and there is one there.
That was the question.
Yeah.
That was the question.
That was the, yeah, it was more of an encouragement than a question. Yeah. Yeah. Okay, yes.
You said that you already have 20 candidates in the list, but anyone in this room would like to be candidates, how do you go about that?
A very good question. Very good question. So we have an open list, which means that anyone can agree to be on the list. In that case, you have to say that to Valmyndigheten 2 days before the election, so 7th of September. And then you have to have names, people writing your name on the ballot. And if you get more than 5% of the votes on Initiativet, you will get on the list. You will actually get on top of the list. Yeah. Okay. So if there's no more questions, it is my great honor and great pleasure to introduce Toby to you. And Toby is, I would say, a political wizard. When we launched Initiativet, or actually before, Toby and I, we know each other from a school in Amsterdam called Think, Amsterdam School of Creative Leadership, where also Karim and Chris has been. And when we launched Initiativet, I mean, it was one of the first people I said, Toby, what should we do? And you said, wow, you're starting a political party, can I help? And I said, yes, you can. Yes, you can. And speaking of yes, you can, Toby was the community engagement strategist for Barack Obama for the 2012 election. And they organized not less than 55,000 community leaders. So that is, of course, the ambition here. You guys give us all the tips and tricks on how to do it. And I see this is just a starting point. The 80 so people here, we will be the first 80 pioneers, and then we will go and get 80 more each. And soon we will be up in 55,000 here as well. So take it away, Toby.
there are different theories in organizing work. One theory is that organizers have to come from within the community because they know the community best. Another theory is that organizers should come from outside the community because they're not weighted down by some of the biases that happen within a community. We're playing that second role, and in that role, I'm sensing that we need a break. So let's do that first, and then when we come back, we're going to go deeper into the work. So let's take a 10-minute break. 20-minute break, and let's meet back here in exactly, what time is it, in 20 minutes?
That's 11:30.
At 11:30, okay? At 11:30, back in this space, and we're going to go deeper into the work. So just very quickly, my name is Toby Chaudhary. I've kind of built a career out of working with high-profile leaders and major organizations and communities in the high-stakes world of politics, and with inspiring movements around the world. And I'll say that, as Michael mentioned, Christine, Kareem, and I, all of us met Michael a while ago. For me in the US, we also read about the initiative in the New Yorker magazine. And it was truly inspirational to us, right? I don't need to tell you all what kind of an extraordinary moment it is in our lives in the US, right? After our last election, several things started to happen. Immediately, those of us who went from awake to woke, right? Folks who come out of not party politics, but out of the struggle that we all face in dealing with our lives and the people we care about, started to resist, right? And resist because all of a sudden big things were happening. Rights were at stake. But it wasn't just about policy, because the fire was actually burning in our neighborhoods. People were getting hurt. And so there was a lot of energy that rushed in to come immediately into that resistance space. Then there's this moment where all of a sudden we had to start reflecting. One doesn't lose an election like the one that was lost, with so much at stake, without making mistakes. Making mistakes in assumptions, in strategy, in tactics. And it was very important for us to start that process of really reflecting around that. But then there's that third phase that I think we're just starting to discuss, which is that phase of rebuilding. How do we really, even with the fire burning, how do we look beyond what's happening now, right? How do we look beyond the election of Donald Trump? How do we look beyond Brexit? Even back before, how do we look beyond Arab Spring and all these civilizing movements that have been happening around the world? And actually ask ourselves, how do we use this moment and the urgency of this moment to now rebuild our networks globally, nationally? How do we really bring together that local commitment that we all have globally and match that with national and collective strength? That's what this is really all about for us. And I'll tell you, when we think about how we did some of this stuff in Obama land, and we'll talk about this more in case study as we get deeper into the work. But it was very clearly about community organizing. Barack himself was a community organizer. And in community organizing, everyone gets a chance to step into leadership. But there's something special that happens in campaigns that are built around community organizing. Step number one is, how do we actually identify, train, and truly nurture leadership? Not leaders, because we all have to step into leadership and at times step out of leadership, because we have to weigh this with the struggles of everything that we're dealing with in life. How do we really nurture this kind of leadership? And once we actually have this leadership moving, how do we truly build communities around that leadership? How do we start to activate the networks around that leadership? And once we do that, then how do we actually build from the resources within those networks? Oftentimes we think we're going to go and get resources outside of our networks. It doesn't quite work that way, because that's a set of resources that may not be sustainable. So how do we really look at the resources that we can sustain and use those resources to actually build the power to solve the problems that we need to solve? We're not just seeking power for the sake of seeking power. And so these are the kinds of things that we're going to delve into, but truly, every single one of the people in this room is building that leadership. We're going to step into leadership, we're going to step out of leadership, and we're kind of hearing it, right? So I'm going to ask 4 things before I kick this to Brother Kareem to take us into what the next couple of days are going to look like and how we're going to go about doing this work. And that's number one, we've heard it. Number one, it's really important that as we step into leadership, that we're facing reality. This isn't a time to shy away from what we believe is real with respect to our condition, true opportunities and challenges that we're facing. How can we really face that reality together? Number two, and we heard Christine take us through a lot of this process, how do we truly do adaptive work? What does that mean? That means how do we really actually think about our values, our behaviors, our priorities, our practices, and actually do behavioral change. Because this isn't about just doing what has happened better. It's actually about doing new things. And if we are going to take on that kind of leadership, we've heard it, we have to remind ourselves that we have to pursue the kind of wisdom and insights that we need to actually be able to do that leadership. And number four, which is my biggest ask to you, which I'm hearing everybody say already, is that each one of us in this room has to take this moment to say, you know what? This is an opportunity to be a source of that movement. That means stepping up. That means stepping back. But knowing that everything that we're feeling and we're thinking is an energy that helps us be that source of movement with the entire group. So I'm asking that because that's exactly how we're going to go forward. One of the things that really resonated with me and a lot of my colleagues in the US, just reading about what you all are doing here, is that for the first time in a long time, we're seeing folks actually reframe the conversation. All of a sudden, it's not just about policy debates, but it's how do we truly solve a big set of problems? How do we not just go back to the same old political conversation, but how do we really look at deeper meaning between all the different pieces of wellness and arts and culture and lifestyle, all the different things that bring the whole person in with what is the possibility of the whole group. And so that is the purpose that we're going to really launch on. And I'm going to kick it to Kareem to tell you, at least, give you a preview and to discuss how we're going to be doing this. Brother Kareem, take it on.
Hi there. I'm a little bit of a different personality than my friend here. But I'm used to doing this as well. In a slightly different capacity. I'm wondering if my microphone is working. Is it working? Will it press down? Great. I facilitate processes. And I'm going to tell you a little bit that I'm a little bit nervous about this process. Because also for me, this is a first. That we actually do this in this forum, in this kind of setting, with a party that's just starting up, with such ambitious vision, values, and process. So I'm really excited. And at the same time, I showed up with a cold, a pretty bad cold, and holes in my socks. All right? And so that's where I'm kind of at now. Maybe not feeling so empowered. And at the same time, I hope, talking about hopes, we talked about hopes, hoping that we will, by the end of this weekend, really feel our power. Power is a resource. Power is in this collaboration that we can actually affect the change we want. Because that's what it's about, right? So I hope you'll be excited by what we do together. I hope you'll be inspired by what we do together. But I hope you especially will feel empowered and want to take initiative. So I promise you that these holes in my socks are illustrative of how imperfect this process is. Okay? It's not going to be shiny. Sometimes it's going to be tough. Sometimes you're going to feel like there's a big gap. What about that one? You're going to feel that way. There's holes in this process. It doesn't feel perfect. Not everything gets covered. We can't do everything in 1.5 days together. We want to.
You can't. So let's make sure we meet again, right? So let's take the imperfection of the process and take that as a source of strength. Imperfection of us all, but just the fact that we decided to get together and go through this process. Now we've put a lot of thought into this process, let me promise you that. And it's being done time and time again, like elsewhere, like Christine said. So you can have faith that the process will work to some degree. But let me talk to you about what the process will be then. First of all, we're going to, don't worry about it, I'll turn it on in a second. We're going to discover with each other all the work that has been done before, right? So where are we now? 5 months of quite extensive work. It's not a long time, but there has been a lot of work done in those 6 political domains. So we're going to do what we call level setting. So we bring up the level of the knowledge of what has been done already in the 6 domains up to at least a higher level. And then we're going to open it up. We're first going to ask topic owners, again, from the political labs to like health and well-being and education and sustainability, to host an open space discussion. Who's familiar with open space? And who's not familiar with open space? Great. And we're going to explain to you how it works. But it really is about creating an open space to say anything that needs to be said and to address the issues that you care about. It's so important, it's so crucial. You go to the topics you care about. Don't go to anything you don't care about, right? Go to the things you care about and voice your opinion, your concern, your insight, and help us delve into that issue that you want to talk about. But you also get the chance to host an open space. So you are passionate about a lot of things, I'm sure, but there are maybe a couple of specific things you came here and you want to check that initiative out and say to the initiative, hey, I think this is what we need to do on youth employment. I think this is what we need to do in the energy transition. I really want to talk about this. Or I think, how are we going to include more and more people in this conversation, Richard? Right? Maybe you want to host that discussion. So the open space is where we do that. And we're going to, Christine has helped us already, but this inquiry, we're going to inquire we're going to seek out many perspectives in the discussion. But if we can get in those open space discussions to what is the issue we're talking about, what is the greatest barrier to solving it, and what are immediate next steps we can formulate to actually start creating a solution, can you imagine that by tomorrow 3 o'clock, we'll kind of feel empowered? I hope so. That's my hypothesis, and I hope you'll want to prove me right. help us prove that hypothesis, validate that hypothesis right. What is the issue? What is the biggest barrier to solving it? And what are immediate next steps we can take? Because we don't only need the government, right? We don't only need a footing in Parliament, right? We can solve a lot of these issues if we work together better. That's what it's about. We know that. We know that if people would only collaborate more, come together on the issues that they care about more, and actually drive those solutions, then we can change those things. And it's good that we have the initiative in the Parliament that's working from the government side of it, right? We're trying to put those two bring those two together. So it's a movement and a political party. I guess that's the answer to the question, is it a movement or a political party? It's both. So, just to give you an overview, because I really want us to get to work, right? You've been listening to too many people talking, and I want to hear you guys talking. So just to give you an overview of what to expect, I hope you can see it. No, you cannot. So let's start from the top. That's where to start. I hope you can see that website, x.co/init1. I'd love you to, if you have a smartphone with you, go to that website. And this is our document of this summit. This is our open document. Anybody can add to this. It's going to get messy, I guarantee you that. and a lot of richness will come to it. So anybody can now, if you log into this, x.co/init1, please do so now. Once you...
Is there a Wi-Fi here?
No.
Yeah, that's a thing, but we don't have that. So I hope most of you are connected otherwise.
Share the telephone with
Yeah,
each
make a
other.
hotspot, make a couple of hotspots open. Then.
Great, great. We can crowdsource connection. I love it.
Some say Wi-Fi, I say why not?
So this is our open source document. Anybody can add to this document throughout the whole summit. And we're actually hoping you will, very actively. You'll add to the document when it comes to things that come out of your open space on the issues and the barriers and the next steps. You'll add to the document because you want to share a selfie because you met some incredibly cool people. Any which way or form you want to add to this document, you can. We've made a start with it, and here's some goals, and we've talked a lot about goals, so we'll skip over that. And here's what you kind of can expect, as an agenda. We're way in the middle of, well, actually we're past the welcome and the introduction. We've had the coffee break. We're going to start the level setting discussions in a moment. Okay, so sharing what has already been done. We're going to break for lunch at around 1 o'clock. Around 1 o'clock. More or less 1 o'clock. Okay? Then we'll have, in the afternoon, 3 rounds of open space. Okay? We'll get some more inspiration from the White House. I was like, remember those times that it was still inspiring to hear what was coming from the White House? Anyhow, we'll talk a little bit more about how we create that groundswell movement we're looking to create. That's basically more or less today. Christine might help us out at the end to bring these polarities to the front and get some personal insights on how you relate to these tensions. And tomorrow we'll focus very much a lot on the dreaming part of it. Let's come up with the big dreams, the big vision. Can we create some kind of collective vision of where Sweden needs to go? Can we invite many different perspectives in that? And can we create a next steps plan? How does not only what are we going to do together in the coming weeks, maybe can we do more of these meetings, many more of these meetings over time, over the next couple of months? And how will the road to September 9 look like, if you want to be involved in that? For September 9, we need 240,000 votes to get into Parliament. With the 70 or 80 people here, I don't know. Should be possible. But it's really about, here's where it started, right? Or it's actually started months ago, but now we're getting to some kind of exponential growth. So we're going to figure out how we can go exponential tomorrow. All right? Sound like a plan? Sound interesting?
Yeah.
Let's do it. Are you excited? First step, right? Are we excited?
Yes.
Cool.
Yes, we are.
Fired up and ready to go.
Yeah. Great. Let me just double check my notes if I missed anything. No. So has everybody been able to get into this document, or most of you at least? If anybody's having any trouble, just come and see Toby or Christine or I, and we'll figure it out for you. There's 51 or 55 people in there as we speak, so that's great. Very cool. Lotte, shall we go over some ground rules together? So ground rules are really about how do we create a safe space together? And I'd love if we could, we've come up with a number to just get us started, but if we could actively crowdsource a list of ground rules right now.
I would like to start and say that it's very important that we listen, really, really listen to each other, that we not just wait for our time to speak. So deep listening and to take in others' perspective. Is there something that we can sign on? Can we agree about that?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. Is there anybody who have an option? Don't want to do this? Okay.
And then when you have taken the other one's perspective, because it's very, very likely for me to, to find something that is not working in this perspective, or something that I have something better. But if you try to take the other perspective, that find something good in this perspective first, before you start to, speak. And ask questions. Can we have an agreement on this one too?
Yeah.
Is that possible? Yeah. And if you don't agree, you just shout it out, and you will continue to fill in here if there's something more. So all of our missions, mine and yours and everybody here, the perspective is to help each other. If we're not perfect, we're not going to be perfect, but help each other, not be each other's competitors. Help each other to reach the goals together. And make sure you start and end on the right time, and that times will be here on the boards later on. And think about that you have the time, you share the time together. So it's maybe you could just have a thought like, is this I'm going to say now so much more important than I will be listening to? Or will it will be settled? So think about that, you share the time, so nobody is more important than another. But sometimes you really have something important, so let that person speak then, and not maybe have a time limit. And then I think it's very, very important to take responsibility for taking care of yourself. So that if you have a need, it's your responsibility to speak out and say, this is the need I have. Or if you see that we should have this in the group, or why don't we have that pen, or whatever it is, take responsibility for you need it, fix it. Yeah, I think we have a platform here, so it's just be aware and take care of yourself and each other. Is there anything you would like to add now? Did I miss something? Yeah?
Well, that there aren't any holy cows.
No.
Anything can be changed.
Yes. Good. Thank you. More? Yeah, Magnus?
To agree on what you said, ask a lot of questions before you jump to any conclusions.
Ask a lot of questions before you get a conclusion, or maybe you not even get a conclusion. Yeah?
So, I want to be open-minded, and as I said before, I really want to be independent of political parties. I'm here listening, right? And I hope I'm wrong, sensing, because there's some people who's taken leadership already, they're forming, and like you said, we're waiting in to get the whole picture, connecting with our conscious, what did you call it? Conscious?
Group consciousness?
The group consciousness. And not being like, for some people to get a platform and have recognition and power, but I guess it's a process.
Is that covered by share the time? Share the space?
Yes.
Is it covered?
Yes, yes. Like I said, I grew up in this kind of environment. I remember this, but it takes time, probably. Yeah.
Anything else to add? And the rules, some rules will be in the other room, so you will have them. So I'll just hand over to you. Or?
I thought you were going to explain where we have to go.
Okay, so we will get over to the open space right now.
First we'll do the level setting.
Yeah.
With the group owners. Right?
Yes. There are already some laboratories which we have been making, and I believe that it could be people here from the different political labs here. So do we have anyone from the Planet here? The Planet Lab? Please come, step forward. Find your note here. Do we have anyone from well-being and health. Please step forward. Yeah, you can step forward, all of you. Inclusion. Do we have anyone from our political lab? Yes, please step forward. Economic theory. Yes. Learning and education. And then we have the silver generation. That's
What was that?
yeah, silver generation. It's about the elderly people. So I would like you from the different groups here say a short word about your political laboratories. Where are you now, so they can get in and take participation if they want.
And so let me just reiterate something, right? So what we're going to do is, as a group, we're going to hear quick updates about what's happened so far. And then we are going to actually, each person representing group is going to be in a station that will show you where they are. And we'll have time for people to go to the stations that they want and to ask clarifying questions. This is really about getting up to speed, right? In that process, issues are going to come up. You might think about gaps or things that you're self-interested that you want to see happen. Make a note of those things, because those are issues that we're going to want to revisit when we get into the open space, right? So this is really about clarifying what has happened already, understanding it enough so that we can start to look forward at where the organizing is going, right? So we'll first get a pitch, and then they'll all be at a station for you to go individually ask questions.
How much time is it?
So under 3 minutes. Each person has under 3 minutes.
Okay, can you hear me? Is it on? Yes. No, it's not this.
And is there someone who can play timekeeper? Right. So if we, or let them know when we're at 1 minute.
I can do that.
Right. Thank you.
Okay, great.
Håll den nära munnen.
All right, close to the mouth. I'll keep it there. Have everyone in here been to a political lab or heard about it? No. Okay. Some of you have, some of you haven't. I'll tell you a little bit first about the inspiration that we get from our political labs. We gather people to talk about these political issues, like the planet. And we gather a lot of people, and we get wisdom and knowledge and perspectives and ideas that we would never have thought of otherwise. But there are also, of course, a lot of difficulties, because we get maybe 20 to 30 people at a lab, and there's hundreds of ideas, and then we are 3 or 4 people that are going to put it all together to visions and targets, political targets. So it's just exciting and amazing. And we've had labs where we define how we see our big challenges, which dreams we have, and how we can find solutions to those dreams to make them real. And we had maybe 20 to 30 people per lab, hundreds of ideas, which we condensed down to 9 visions. And then, of course, we needed to clarify them further. So now we have approximately 4 visions that are ready for an advice process. That we are, I think we are going to put them out for advice pretty soon. Yeah, and in all the laboratories, I have a very short time, so I won't take questions right now. There are them later. In the laboratories, we divided so that we had the 3 dimensions of sustainability. We have the ecological sustainability, we have the economic sustainability, and we have the social sustainability. And we let people take the topic that they were most interested in. And what we found was that people took all of the 3 dimensions, and we found a lot of interconnections with education, with well-being, and economic issues that were connected to the planetary issues. And today I want to develop one of these visions further, which is about economic sustainable, socially sustainable, and environmentally sustainable business, and I want to develop those ideas further today with you. Okay.
But can you say the goals that you have?
So we have the 4 visions, yeah, that we have put out for advice process. It's on climate action. There is some biodiversity in the forestry and agriculture, and there's sustainable consumption, and there's also sustainable public spending. So those are the 4 visions that we have put out for advice process. Yeah.
So you will take the rule number 1, and rule number 1, where is that?
It's here.
It's here. All right.
Score.
Where here is it? Yeah. Hello, hello. My name is also Martin. I live up north in Umeå, as I said, and I will use a manuscript because I've got short of time. It's better to use a manuscript. Närmare munnen. As you may know, some of you, my purpose is to engage in the issue of increasing psychological illness, together with my loved one Hjördis, who is also here. And we joined the group of well-being and health to do that, and have taken part in the political labs, which are fantastic altogether. And now I will, together with our young friend Felix here, present to you the main goals and proposals that this lab has so far suggested to be the parts of the initiative policy document. But I will start with a short statement that has come up as a common for the lab issues, all of them. And that is, the initiative cares for your well-being, lifelong. And that short statement contains our effort to focus on policies on giving every citizen, as a child, the possibility to grow up with safe, close and loving attachment during the very first important years, and as an adolescent and adult, the opportunity to develop herself or himself to the best of everyone's potential together with others. And when there is need, and as an elder, experience the benefit of society care with dignity. And now Felix will describe the first area that we have worked with.
Yes, thank you, Martin. The first vision that we have had as a top priority during our labs is roughly translated into English: a society where there is a greater focus on well-being than achievements, and where there is time to take care of ourselves and others. Thank you. The political reforms that that come up during the labs is, for example, a working day consisting of 6 hours instead of 8. Also, basic income have been discussed a lot, and more like trust and cooperation instead of competition in workplaces. And also another measure than GDP. And yeah.
Okay, thank you. And the other top purpose that we have discussed in the lab is about family policies. 10 seconds to say that. Well,
just take the
yes.
headlines all over.
The headline is that we will introduce a new family policies that will make people, parents, to choose instead of having the child from 0 to 3 years in preschool. They could choose to take care of them at home, because during the very first year it's so important that they get a close attachment connection to their parents or anyone that cares for them.
Do you have more headlines to go?
That's the only headline, but there's a lot of motivation, but we'll take that in the lab.
And where will you go? Number 2, where is number 2?
Number 2 is also in this room.
Okay.
I'm just saying I'm running away to prepare the lunch, but you can ask questions to Martin.
Yeah.
Hi everybody. The topics is including and excluding. That means foreigner who come to Sweden, they have to speak Swedish in order to be part of the society. And that's why I will address you in Swedish. Because nobody else is doing that right now. Det som vi har diskuterat i labbet, det är frågan om att vara exkluderade från arbetsmarknaden, segregation av olika slag, bostadsmarknaden. Det är frågan om social exkludering. Det är frågan om gamla, unga. Det är frågan om de som bor i Stockholm och i stora städer, deras problem jämfört med de som bor utanför. Eller som bor i andra delar av landet. Vi säger landet, men ja, ni förstår vad jag menar. Landsbygden alltså. Och en av de viktigaste frågorna som vi har kommit fram och vi har diskuterat, det är frågan om ensamhet. Det finns människor som väljer att vara ensamma. Däremot det är många som känner sig tvungna att vara ensamma, de har ingen att prata med. Vi har pratat om basinkomst, som är någonting som många är intresserade och engagerade. Men basinkomst är en fråga som egentligen är inte självklar för alla. Och den frågan vi tagit upp. Oavsett om du har varit med de här labb eller inte, alla är välkomna att bidra. Samtalet kommer att vara på svenska. Och alla synpunkter är välkomna, det är aldrig för sent. Hjärtligt välkomna.
And the one who needs translation in English, then they will have it, yes?
What?
If there is somebody who's English speaking, they will have some translation. Yeah.
Including, not excluding.
This room. Dance or maybe. It's just walk through the halls.
Which number?
Number 2.
It says in this on the board.
Yeah, but that board doesn't. It's so many. It's like 10, but we have only 6 areas. So maybe we can spread out a bit to just do like don't talk to each other.
Could be 10. We don't know yet.
Oh, then we could go for here. No. Okay, but put them in the dance room, the dance floor.
I hope I will be in the library, because I'm a librarian. My name is Christina. I'm soon going to be retired. You can't believe it, but it's true. But when I 2 years ago realized what amount of money, or how poor I should be, it was a shock for me. So I started to demonstrate myself outside the Riksdagshuset, Centralstationen, Medborgarplatsen, singing. När man är en fattig pensionär, då är man tung i sinnet, lever på minnet. Well. Nu pratar jag svenska. Check är också med i den här gruppen, denna unge man. Och Theo, vad är Theo? Fantastiskt.
Var blev det lunch?
Ja men gud. Alltså det är fantastiska människor som är med i den här gruppen. Och vi träffas i min kvarterslokal på Söder, ska jag säga det? Den 23 maj, då kommer Anna från SPF och berätta om pension. Och min somaliska vän ska komma. Så det gäller alla. Vi ska prata om...
Let's stay here now.
Ja, nu är vi här. Ja. Kom och lyssna. Även ungdomar. Ni måste börja spara nu.
Ja. Do you have any conclusions from your labs?
Hur smarta vi är, tänker jag. Och det här kommer att bli bra.
This is the latest lab.
This will be very, very good, I'm sure.
Ja, en någonting som vi har kommit fram till sista gången vi träffades, det är gärna basinkomst, men först en riktig
pension. Man måste ta hand om våra gamla, alltså faktiskt det är vi som har byggt upp. Så, ja.
Hej. Jag tar det här på svenska för det blir enklare så. Samme heter jag och tillsammans med Aina som stod där, hej, och Erik som är någonstans där, så driver vi labbet ekonomisk teori. Kortfattat så innebär det att vi har lyft fram 2 stycken olika teoretiska perspektiv. Ekologisk ekonomi och post-keynesiansk ekonomi. Där vi har pratat med 2 professorer i ämnet. Och sen så har vi haft 2 labb på det. Och frågeställningarna som vi har haft i de här labben har varit, givet att antagandena som vi lever under nu i den ekonomiska kontext som vi har är trasiga. Vilka antaganden ska man ha då i framtiden? Och sen så har det spunnit vidare i utmaningar och i drömmar. Och sen så har vi några konkreta förslag då. Men idag så tänkte vi att vi kommer liksom kort presentera bara några av de här målbilderna, alltså grupperingar av målbilder. Vi har haft jättemånga idéer, men vi har grupperat dem i ett antal större sjok så att säga. Ena är då basinkomst har kommit upp, den andra är creative spaces och sen så den tredje är mått på samhällets utveckling och framgång och sista då är resursfördelning. Så de målbilderna kommer vi diskutera och försöka koka ner till något konkret som ni kan göra politik av. Och där är ni hjärtligt välkomna att delta.
Vilket rum ska ni sitta i och var är det?
Köket kan vi vara. Kitchen.
Nummer 4, köket. Ekonomisk teori.
Vad är grupp 4?
Syrgenerationen var i biblioteket.
Ja, jag tycker det.
Nej, men jag tror
Okej, jag tror det här blir det sista politiska området och det är lärande och utbildning. Och där har vi faktiskt inte haft något labb än, vilket är ju förvånande med tanke på hur viktigt det området är. Vi har haft lite möten, vi har haft diskussioner och några saker står väl klart att vi vill. Vi vill jobba för en skola som gör oss till hela människor. Där vi får lära oss hantera ångest och sorg och mycket av det som ger psykisk ohälsa. Vi vill ha en utbildning som är över hela livet, kanske inte bara att det är första året, utan man blandar lite mera utbildning, praktik och att man lär sig under hela livet eftersom samhället kommer ändras så otroligt snabbt. Ja, sen har vi tittat en hel del på Finland förstås, eftersom de har ju världens bästa skola. De har gjort ett antal saker, de har avskaffat läxor, de har kortare skoldagar, de har gett väldigt mycket makt till lärarna, autonomi och sådär. Men här finns det ju verkligen möjligheter att påverka. Så att vi kan ha en ganska öppen diskussion om vad vi vill med utbildningspolitik.
Jag skulle vilja lägga till att jag har varit på alla labb utom ett faktiskt, det är den här silvergenerationen. Och jag kan känna att många av de här frågorna går igen i olika labb. Så att det känns som om vi alla liksom jobbar verkligen gemensamt. Och sen är det också så att det finns ju en lag om de 2 benen i open space. Och det betyder att där du väljer att vara nu, då kanske du känner så här att nej men här har jag inget att bidra med. Eller här lär jag mig ingenting. Liksom det här är inte rätt för mig. Ta du bara dina 2 ben och så går du till något annat som intresserar dig. Och du kan hålla på så hela dagen om du vill. Sen är det också viktigt några andra saker och det är att vi tänker så att vi som är här, vi är de rätta. Vi sitter inte och tänker att ja, men om bara han skulle varit här, då hade det varit bra. Utan vi tänker så att vi är de rätta som är här på plats. Och den tiden vi har till förfogande, den är den rätta tiden. Vi kommer lösa det och vi kommer fortsätta. De här reglerna har alla med sig in i de här respektive rummen. Och jag skulle också vilja säga att när det gäller tiden, verkligen dela tiden, det vill jag bara påminna om så att alla liksom, att ni i varje grupp, att ni utser då en tidguide som ser till att ni håller tiden och så en som tar noteringar så att ni har sammanställt vad ni har gjort i gruppen så att ni skulle kunna presentera det för någon annan eller någon annan skulle kunna läsa lappen till och med. Så det finns ju då pennor här. Och ja.
Vem kör utbildning och vilket rum?
Bra fråga.
Ja.
Jag fick aldrig något rum. Jag kommer vara i det rummet som är längst bort till höger. Man går in förbi dansgolvet så är det längst bort till höger. Där är ett rum med väldigt mycket gröna växter i. Där kommer jag sitta.
Och den sista principen det är att vad som än händer i det här labbet så är det rätta som händer. Så att känn inte liksom bara vad ska jag välja eller det här var inget som passade mig. För att ibland har jag gått in på ett labb och tänkt så här att det var det här jag tänkte men sen tänkte jag något helt annat när jag gick därifrån. Och det händer nästan varje gång. Är det någon här som känner att det här känns ju, vi borde ett eller annat. Är det någon som har något att lägga till? Eller vill ni börja jobba direkt?
Vänta lite, Lotta, vänta lite.
Ja. Du har en fråga så länge, vi tar den emellan.
Ja, nej, det är svårt att välja på grund av att de går in i varandra så pass otroligt mycket och det är någonting man får tag i. Det är svårt att hitta helt ömsesidigt utslutande områden. Men det är bara en reflektion som jag känner att man går in i varandra hela tiden.
Ja, prova och vara ödmjuk om ni går in i ett labb som redan pågår. För då kanske det som ni hade tänkt att säga kanske redan är upptaget i början. Så att var väldigt ödmjuk hållning när ni kommer in och lyssna. En fråga till där.
Okay, I already interrupted, so maybe I'll interrupt a little bit if you're okay. So I love this. I love this. So it feels like you need a little bit of time to. What is your need? Can you talk about your need a little bit?
So I'm asking myself which one should I choose because all of them they are connected so much, and that is what makes me question. So I don't know which one to go to because they are so interconnected. That's my question.
Good question. Let's just feel those two figures and we'll see if we can on the spot co-create.
Is it possible that each can point the most important point?
Yeah.
So when you come in, you can see is my point there or not?
Yeah. Yeah.
You know,
Thank you.
It's a rather similar point, but like I studied law once upon a time. There was always the general rule. There was always the main principle. What is the goal of this law?
Yeah.
So that you don't have to know the details. You just know the law, the goal itself. So that
Okay. Great point. So we've now been introduced to this technology of open space. We have to kind of let it, you know, we're going to experience it, and that's why we're in a moment or after lunch we're going to do. My suggestion would be after lunch do the first round of open space, but just to and then we'll clarify and make sure everybody knows exactly what to do, and then at the same time go out there and try it out for yourself. It's for the first time. Now to your point, what we think we could do now up till lunch is allow you to go to the topics you want to talk about or would like to know more about, right? So not everybody's interested in all 6 topics, or maybe some of you are, but then you just have to move a little faster. And so we'll ask the topic owners to go to the stations that are there, and we call it science fair, okay? So it means you can just walk up, visit, ask some questions. Can you tell me a little bit more about the goals? I really don't understand where we're trying to go with this. I'm really interested in this. Tell me more about that. So it's more about clarifying, hearing what work has already been done, and maybe the topic owners, while they're doing that, can start creating some kind of A3 or flip chart paper where you can see more overview when you come in. So you can go, oh, this is what it's about. Oh, okay. And then start to, broaden your knowledge or deepen your knowledge on where we stand now. And that, I think, will set you up for after lunch, and we can take the conversation into lunch, after lunch to actually dive into, okay, this is what I'm passionate about, let's talk about that. Is that okay?
But he has a question.
Yes?
Yeah?
Me?
Yeah.
Fine, thank you very much. Name is Malcolm. Yeah, I think there's an overarching question that doesn't have a group. And I'd be happy to start that group.
Great.
If somebody wants to do it with me. It's been clearly stated a couple of times here that there is a need for democratic reform. There's a serious crisis in democracy. in a lot of countries. Being a former foreign correspondent, I've looked at a lot of things that happen in the world, and it made me think. And I miss this seriously here. This is an overarching, seriously important, but that's why I asked before, are we going into Parliament? Is that a good idea?
Right.
Should we have something else? Should we go somewhere else? So
Thank you, Malcolm.
I don't really think that I belong in any of these groups. I would be happy to share and go to them, but if there's a bunch of people here who would like to discuss democratic reform, I'm happy to form a group.
Thank you, Malcolm. So you're modeling the behavior that we're looking for in rounds 2, 3, and 4. Round 1, we'll kind of do the topic owners will host an open space.
I think
this is
one of the
Karim,
local areas.
I've just been awarded a group called Farmers.
Great, great, and Michael, weren't you in that?
So just put the name on the group and where you're going to be so people can follow you.
Great. So that's exactly it, right? That's how open space works. Now, what we're doing now is open space will start after lunch, is my suggestion. What we're doing now is go find the topic owners you're most interested in, ask your clarifying questions, move around. It's very free flow. You'll find their locations up on the board, so you can shop around. And we're going to do that. What time is it now?
25 minutes.
So we're going to do that to about approximately 1, and we'll send you to lunch around 1. Okay?
And the team leaders, and the team leaders, you have the responsibility to share. Everybody is really taking places in the groups, and also to have tools like pens and papers with you, so you can work.
So topic owners, go to your stations, bring some pens and paper, or some markers and paper. You go find the station you want to dive into, and we'll see each other back at 1 o'clock about, and then we'll have some nice lunch.
And a good leader for a theme group is the one who sees themselves as a servant, not as a boss.